Hi, hey, this is Dr. Tech talking about my syllabus that is common to all of my classes. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll start with, let's start with this one. Why is this, the syllabus, not on a learning management system? Well, the main reason is already listed here. I don't want to have to redo my syllabus that is dependent on the learning management system. So I'm just making a web page and a PDF out of this one so that I can reuse it regardless of the LMS. So the purpose of this document is it is a common overlapping portion of the syllabi of all of my classes. So instead of including this into every single syllabus, I'm just extracting this part here so that every single class can access this. And then on top of that, there will be a portion that is class specific that I will go over in class. My name is Tak, last name is Aoyoung. You can call my phone number 4848250. If I'm not available to answer the phone, you can always leave a message. The message will be recorded as a audio file as an MP3, and it will be sent to my email address, which is the next item here. So if you leave me a message over the phone, I can listen to it through my email, which is great. So my office this semester is mostly in CMC 404, so that's great. But there are times that I'll be in Tech Ed 311, which is also known as the Design Hub. That's officially not my office hour. So this time slot here is not my office hour. And if you come in to see me to ask questions, I will not give you top priority because during that time, I am a supervisor at the Design Hub. So students at the Design Hub working on Design Hub projects will get priority. On the other hand, Monday, Wednesday from 1:30 to 2:30, and also Tuesday, Thursdays from 8 to 9 a.m., you will get my top priority because that is actually my office hour. On Fridays, I have my online office hours from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and I'm planning to use Canvas for that purpose, but I still have to kind of work out how I can do this that is quote unquote universal to all my classes. This particular section here talks about presentation and delivery methods. In this class, you have reading material, you have video clips, and you can also have interactive activities. I do include some video clips, and all of those will have closed captioning, and they're all going to be distributed through YouTube. Your reading materials are mostly in HTML and PDF. I cannot imagine that they will be in any other format. The server is arccis.net. You will see links to those documents once we start school. Interactive activities can include course material, labs, homework assignments, and so on. And those are all distributed through the official learning management system. Section 6 talks about regular effective contact, REC, and communication policy. There are quite a few resources to stay in touch with me. The first one are my office hours that tend to be underutilized. So I just want to let you know this is the best time to talk to me because it's face-to-face. You can come in, you can show me your program, you can show me your proofs, and then I can go over that and talk to you on a one-on-one basis. If you cannot make it to my office hours, you can also email and phone me. Now, phone doesn't usually work very well because I'm not in my office that often, but email works really well because I can always respond at any time I want. But the last option is what I really want you to use, because if you send me a text or message through the learning management system, which in this case is Canvas for now, it leaves behind a trail on the LMS server, which is what we need for accreditation purposes. So this is actually the preferred way to communicate with me if you cannot find me in my office hour. Timeframe policy has to do with when I can get back to you. So basically, it's 24 hours on the regular day and 48 hours over the weekend or holidays. So on holidays, basically, there's no guarantee when I can get back to you because, we are all on vacation. 6.2 has to do with etiquette policy. So basically, it's just common sense. Any content that can be interpreted as harassment or discrimination is not good, okay? So that would include racial slur, sexually suggestive words, personal attack, and so on. Cyberbullying is also not going to be tolerated. Spamming is not going to be tolerated. Content that can be interpreted offensive is also not tolerated. So that would include cursing, name calling, and so on. Section 7 has to do with the first day of class or orientation. So any absence on the first day of class or orientation is sufficient reason to be dropped. So you definitely want to attend your first class or orientation. Section 8 has to do with accommodations. ARC offers equal access to programs, services, and facilities so that students with disabilities in general have the opportunity to participate fully in campus activities. So the bottom line is anyone who may require special needs, including interpreters, tutors, note takers, readers, test facilitators, and so on and so forth. Anyone who is interested in these resources should contact the DSPS office. Their number is 484-8382, and they are in the Student Services building. But they will not provide additional resources unless you have already registered with them and they recognize that there is a need for accommodations. So you might want to contact the DSPS office early if you feel that you need special accommodation. Bring a notification letter from the Disabled Student Program and Services outlining your approved accommodations directly to me as soon as possible so that arrangements can be made. Section 9 has to do with excessive absence. So excessive absence is defined to be 6% or more absences. Generally speaking, if we are talking about a 54-hour full semester lecture that has 80 minutes class meetings, then using this math here, 18 minutes divided by 54 hours. So each class of 80 minutes is about 2.47% of the entire semester when it comes to the lecture time. So that means the first absence is about 2.5%, no big deal. The second absence is about 5%, which is also no big deal. But the third absence is going to add up to close to 7.5%, which is exceeding 6%. So that means the third unexcused absence is excessive. In a class with lecture and lab session, I may choose to use both for attendance purposes. I'm not teaching online classes this semester, so these two paragraphs do not apply. So the next question is, what is excused? This is in section 10. Some absences are excused and some do not count, and therefore they do not count to the 6% threshold of excessive absence. So this part here, the only absence that I can accept is a student's own health-related absences. And these need to have a doctor's note or some kind of evidence that I accept in order for it to be counted to the as a excused absence. All the other absences are basically unexcused. That would include, but not limited to, religious holidays, family occasions, job interviews, work-related issues, transportation problems, childcare-related issues, and so on. Now, I understand these things do happen, and sometimes you cannot go to class because of one of these reasons. And that's why we have the unexcused absences up to 2 absences per semester. So you might want to use those unexcused absences carefully so that you do not add up to more than 6% of unexcused absences. There's no late policy, really, because I don't accept late work. So now that you know that, you just need to schedule time to get your homework assignments done early on so that you would not be late. Section 12 has to do with academic dishonesty or honesty, depending on which side of the coin you want to look at. Academic dishonesty occurs when a student attempts to show possession of a level of competency, knowledge, or skill beyond the level of the student or some other students. In other words, any activity that leads to the misinterpretation of the level of competency, knowledge, or skill to be higher than what it really is basically academic dishonesty. So this definition is a lot more general than what some people would consider, because some people only list activities that count as cheating. And in this case, it is more about the intent and the outcome, not so much about the means. Academic integrity, which is the positive spin and to look at things from a positive perspective. So academic integrity has to do with the grade of a particular student, the grade of a particular assessment of a particular student should reflect the academic performance of that particular student and only of that particular student, not of anybody else, at the approved scheduled time of the assessment, following all the rules of the assessment, and only using the resources that are allowed by the instructor. So if you have any questions of what is approved, what the time frame is, when the assessment is going to happen, what you can bring, and so on and so forth, you might want to ask those questions ahead of time so that you don't get surprised later on. So the Limbus test is basically how I can determine, in case of a dispute, whether academic integrity is present or not. So the bottom line is, if someone gives me evidence that there has been dishonesty, I mark it as such, and the person complains and go, nope, no, I definitely do according to all the rules. I did not cheat. So in those cases, what I can do is to give that person another test, one test that nobody else has ever seen before, but at about the same level in terms of difficulty, what knowledge is being tested, and so on. If the person score about the same score in both cases, then I have evidence that perhaps there has not been any dishonesty to begin with. Cool, no problem. On the other hand, if the second test has a significantly lower score than the first one, then I have evidence that some kind of dishonesty had occurred because the first test seemed to have a score that is higher than what the student is capable of. So that's basically what I can do to confirm one way or another whether dishonesty has happened or not. Now, this is a long section. Why is it so important? Well, because the first one is it's just fair. Okay, it's not okay for someone to use extra unapproved resources or get a score that is higher than what that person is supposed to get. The second one is much more pragmatic, because if a university articulates with ARC because they trust the grade of ARC to reflect the academic performance of a student, academic dishonesty, if it is allowed to happen is going to remove this particular trust, which leads to those universities not articulating with ARC anymore. So this is going to hurt most of our students, and that I cannot allow to happen. The consequences of academic dishonesty is the first one is that work, the entire work that has dishonesty involved, is not going to get any credit. So it's going to be a zero. If this is an exam, it is not just the one question getting a zero, it is the entire exam getting a zero. And then it will be brought to the attention of the division dean if it is not just once. The dean will then decide whether to forward the case to our disciplinary officer at the college. So really serious cases can lead to suspension and even expulsion. So definitely serious. The campus, the college, takes academic dishonesty very seriously. You also might want to read this. It's Student Rights and Responsibilities. Let me see if the link still works. So this can be really helpful because if anyone feels threatened by another student or teacher or has not been treated fairly and so on, this document will outline all the processes and who to talk to in those cases. So it's going to be a really useful document. Section 14 talks about classroom behavior expectations. The bottom line is I do not accept anything that is disruptive in the classroom because it impacts the entire class, because the classroom is for learning purposes and any disruptive behavior is going to impact most people in class, including myself. So the most common form of these disruptive behavior would be chatting, which is really common. And I do understand sometimes, this chatting is not chit chatting. It has to do with perhaps a student did not quite hear what I said and ask the student next to him or her about what I just said about 30 seconds ago. Even though it is legitimate, it seems legitimate, it is best to raise the hand, for that student to raise his or her hand and ask me to repeat instead of asking the next student for that sort of thing. The second one is interrupting. If anyone has a question or point to make and stuff like that, just raise your hand and I guarantee that I will let you speak your mind. Okay. The only exception is when someone has a long history of not really asking related or appropriate questions in class. So in those cases, I might explicitly tell those people not to interrupt the class. Mobile devices, there should be no excuses that a cell phone is ringing in the class because most cell phones running Android or iOS can now automatically turn off the ringer and even the vibration during the time when there are scheduled quote-unquote appointments or scheduled events. So what you need to do is to enter your class schedule onto your cell phone and then mark those particular times as quote-unquote busy. And then you configure, in the case of Android, it's called Do Not Disturb. And you just have to program Do Not Disturb to turn off the ringer and the vibration during scheduled time that you have marked busy. All of the classrooms and labs in CIS has a policy of no eating nor drinking, so please respect that policy. Please come to class on time. If somebody is walking in late, just opening and closing the door can be disruptive to the class. If there's a class before yours, you want to let every single student and the professor to leave from the previous class before entering the classroom. And questions are definitely welcome as long as they are related to the class and asked orderly. All right, so section 15 I'm not going to read because it's a pretty long section about best practices of how to attend lectures. So I'm going to let you to read it. If you choose to say, well, I know everything about attending lectures, I have always been successful at school, you can skip it if you want to. But I'm just telling you that there might be some useful information there. Same thing applies to section 16, how to succeed in this class. The bottom line is, in my classes, I emphasize on showing me that you understand the concepts by problem solving. So I don't really ask memorization questions. I don't put emphasis on rote learning and stuff like that. I just need people to show me that they understand the concepts by solving problems. So this whole section talks about what exactly is understanding, how to understand the concept, what if you cannot understand a particular concept, okay? What is problem solving, and how much independence should you use when you're studying, when you're doing your homework, and when you just want to troubleshoot. Okay, when do you ask for help? Okay. Section 17, once again, is I'm getting back and read my own stuff because section 17 is actually important. Grading standard. So just like every other class, at the end of the semester, I have to give you a letter grade, A, B, C, D, or F. So this table here gives you an idea of the short description of these letter grades, what it means when it comes to scoring, and what it means when it comes to job evaluation, as well as product evaluation. So these two are added here because I just want to show you what is equivalent to an A when it comes to, let's say, product evaluation. What kind of product are you going to assign a letter grade of A? Well, those would be a 5-star products. What kind of product is going to get a 1-star product? Okay, so that's a kind of product that will receive 1 star, which is equivalent to a letter grade of F. So this table is really just to show you my grading standard, what I consider as A, B, C, D, and F type of work. Section 18 talks about, oh, by the way, section 17 is also important because it shows you the percentage range in order to get an A, to get a B, a C, a D, and an F. Section 18 talks about how the grade of the class is broken down into its components. There are 4 main components, so I'm going to go over the 4 main components first, and then we go back to the details. The first component are the assignments and the quizzes. These are things that you can either take home to do it, or sometimes you can do it in the lab, and sometimes you have to do it during the lab time. But basically, these are activities to help you reinforce what you have learned in class. The second main category are the exams, which then is broken up into 3 main sections. The first exam makes up 20% of your grade. That's usually about 1/3 through the class. The second exam is about 20%, and that's usually about 2/3 through the class. And the last one is the final exam, which is 40% of your grade, and that is on the date as scheduled by the college exam schedule. We'll talk about that. Well, let's talk about it now. So this is a link to the final exam schedule. And if you know what days your class is meeting, what time the lecture starts, so this has nothing to do with the lab time, but only the lecture time, those two will determine when the final exam is and the hours of the final exam. So what you need to do is to look at the start time of your lecture, look at the days of the lecture, then you look this up, then you can find out exactly when the final exam of a particular class is. I follow this strictly, so that means I'm not going to make any exceptions to my own final exam schedule. So in order for you to find out when a particular final exam is, look up this table, and then you put it onto your calendar just to make sure that you remember to show up during the final exam time. 1 week or so before the final exam, I would definitely give you a reminder as well. And this is kind of new. I have had this for 1 semester or so. There will be some assignments that I do not grade. So let's admit it, grading homework assignments takes a lot of time. And so sometimes I will give you some work to do, but I'm not going to collect it nor grade it. So what are we going to do with these? Well, a few things. First of all, because it's not graded, that means collaboration is fine. Okay, if you guys want to work on it as a group, no problem. Now, the second question is, if it's not graded, how are you going to learn from these assignments? Well, after I give you the assignment, I will basically tell you when I will give you the solution. So the solution itself is one way of learning from these assignments. So what you can do is to look at your solution, you look at my solution, and you compare those two. Okay, are they different? Are they about the same? Are they exactly the same? If they're different, is one working but the other one is not working? Are they both working? And so on. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. So even though the assignments are not graded, if you have questions about the assignments, you can always ask those questions in class. You can come to my office hour. You can send me a message or text about those particular assignments. You can ask me, well, this is my program, but it doesn't work on all the test cases that I have presented, and why is it not working? Okay, I can try to help you answer those questions. So the bottom line is, even though some assignments are not graded, it doesn't mean they are not important, because even though they are worth 0% of your final grade, doing these homework assignments and putting in your effort and learning from these assignments can help contribute to your exam grades. So that is why these assignments can be very important, even though by themselves, they do not carry any points. So this is all that I have to say about the common part of my syllabus. During class time, I will go over the part that is specific to each class. So you will hear me talk about, class specific stuff when we do meet in class.